You are given a plate of your breakfast, and the person who is serving you says, "Yaar, this is full of chemicals." I'm sure you are going to be shocked and say that, "Oh, I don't want to eat this." Are chemicals bad? Why should there be more women in science? What has chemistry has done to us? Is it only environmental destruction? Something more? The guest with whom we are going to have a conversation in this episode, Professor Paul Walton, who is a professor of chemistry at University of York in United Kingdom. We are going to have a very interesting discussion with him. Keep watching this Eureka. Before that, we will take a short break and look at his brief profile and continue with our conversation.
Professor Paul Walton is the professor of chemistry at the University of York and also internationally known for his work on equality issues in science. Professor Paul Walton obtained his PhD in 1990, followed by 2 years as a postdoctoral fellow at the University of California in Berkeley, USA. Later on, he joined the Department of Chemistry at York as a faculty member in 1993, and between 2004 and 2010, he was a chair of the department. His research interests include the structures and functions of copper enzymes, metallodrugs, biomimetic model complexes, and imprinted polymers. His recent outstanding research to the understanding of cellulose oxidizing enzymes are now being used by the industry in the production of second-generation biofuels. Professor Walton has been the editor of Dalton Transactions between 2004 and 2008, chair of the Heads of Chemistry UK, Royal Society of Chemistry's Diversity Committee, and also 175 Faces of Chemistry in Royal Society of Chemistry. Professor Paul Walton has also been bestowed with many awards. Noted among them are the Royal Society of Chemistry's Higher Education Teaching Award, the RSC's Joseph Chatt Award for Outstanding Multidisciplinary Research, the IChemE's Global Award for Energy Research, and the Royal Society's inaugural Athena Prize for Gender Equality Work.
Thank you for being with us. It's a wonderful opportunity. You have come all the way from United Kingdom to India. Why? Is it some pleasure trip? You want to also go and see Taj Mahal, as most people who will come to India would do? Yes. Or is it for some academic collaboration purpose?
Well, mostly the latter, because the British Council, which is an organisation to promote British-India collaborations, is celebrating its 70th anniversary this year. And they've organised as part of that some talks, some visits from people like me to talk about science and, in my case, gender equality, and how two countries can work together on these issues.
Oh, that's a very interesting. Where all you are going to visit in India when you are going to be in your this trip?
Well, I'm here in Delhi, and I've also visited Hyderabad and Guwahati and Chandigarh.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Let me ask you a kind of a different question. I mean, we all have heard of the story of Archimedes. I mean, when suddenly he got a bright idea, he was taking bath, literally naked, and he ran in streets saying, "Eureka, Eureka." I don't know whether you ran in street naked shouting "Eureka, Eureka," but I'm sure you would have had some interesting moments in your research career.
Yes.
Where you felt Eureka, some bulb went into your head.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about it?
Yeah, it's a great privilege as a scientist that we have these Eureka moments, and they come in your career and you remember them very vividly. And my Eureka moment, my favorite Eureka moment, is when we were trying to study how biology degrades the things that you see out in the fields, in the forests.
What do you mean by biology degrades?
Yes, so when you take a walk, say, in a field or a forest, and you look around, you see that the dead plants, the dead trees are being rotted away very, very slowly. And biology has this mechanism, this ability to degrade the things that have died and to make use of them, to take the energy out of them, take the nutrients out of them. And my Eureka moment was a point where we were trying to understand this. I walked into one of my colleagues' office and he had the structure of a chemical on his computer screen, just a simple structure. And I pointed to it and said, "Oh, that structure there contains a special element, copper, which you find in the periodic table." And he looked at me and said, "What do you mean it contains copper?" And I said, "It's copper. Let's go for coffee." And he said to me, no, sit down, Paul, because we have been trying to find out what the element is in this special molecule for a very long time. And you just happen to have seen it. And I was lucky because my specialism, my PhD, was done in copper, and I immediately recognized this on the screen.
Okay. What is this molecule? I mean, does it have a name?
Yes, it does. And so this is a molecule which in biology is known as an enzyme. And enzymes are put out by organisms onto the decaying matter to degrade them. And this particular enzyme is a very efficient degrader of plant biomass. And it's given a long name, and I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you it. It's called lytic polysaccharide monooxygenase.
I'm sure you have to repeat once again.
So between me and you, we call that an LPMO.
LPMO. That's, I think, much better and much simpler, fine.
Right.
But this enzyme that you talked about, our body also secretes lots of enzyme, right? For example, when you have to digest your food, that too is because of the action of enzymes, right?
That's right.
So, is it the same factor that works in digestion, works in degradation?
Yeah, almost. So when we eat food, it goes inside us, and enzymes from us do indeed break down the food. So if you eat a potato, for instance, it goes into you, and enzymes start to chew up the bits of potato to make it into smaller molecules, into sugars, which then we could use for energy.
Okay.
In biology, in the bigger world of biology, the degradation of the biomass in front of them is much more difficult because of things like wood and bits of trees or leaves, which you and I can't normally eat. Yeah. But biology, so these are fungi and some bacteria, have equipped themselves with special enzymes, these LPMOs, which allow them to take the food out of these things that you and I can't take the food out of.
That's very interesting. I'm sure it's a very curious stuff. People should have been looking for such a molecule, such an enzyme for quite a long time. What does it do, etc. Yes. And you happen to find it in a computer screen.
That's right.
Kind of. Huh?
Yeah, that's right. But remember that this has come from two people having years of history at working in science, and we came together completely by chance. That was the Eureka moment. But these LPMOs now are used by human beings to take what is normally waste biomass, so these are grasses, trees, things that you see in the fields which are normally burnt by farmers. And we use these enzymes now to break down these things into their sugars, which then we can ferment and turn into fuel, which you can put in your car, you can drive your car around on it, and it's completely carbon neutral.
Okay.
And this is real. This is happening all over the world because of that single Eureka moment.
That's a very interesting thing. So from chance looking at a computer screen, today you have a mechanism by which you can produce much more efficient biofuel, much more greener biofuel, I suppose so, right?
That's right.
And without necessarily banking on looking at food grains for using for biofuel, right?
That's right. It's exactly right. And all of a sudden now we can get fuel out of not the grains or the corn that farmers grow in the field, but the grasses that grow on wasteland away from farmland. And I come to India and I see just the wonderful resource that the country has to do exactly this, and all the land that's available, particularly where you could grow grasses, which now you can think about turning into fuel-producing fields.
That's a very interesting thing. We need to take a very short break. But then imagine, few months ago, we had a huge problem of pollution because people were burning their agricultural waste. Instead of burning it, if you could have turned it into a fuel, it would have been a win-win situation. Science can help us better our life. We'll take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. We'll continue this conversation. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a very wonderful and a very enlightening conversation with Professor Paul Walton, who is a professor of chemistry at the University of York in United Kingdom. And he has come at the invitation of British Council, and Vigyan Prasar and Rajya Sabha Television are using this opportunity to bring you some of the latest science in the world of chemistry. Let me start with this question. That's how I started this program. Suppose if somebody comes and gives you your dinner plate and say that, this is full of chemical. Most people are going to push it away and say that, my God, I can't eat this.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that chemistry has got this reputation for being bad, that it hurts us, that it causes pollution, that it causes problems? But the truth of the matter is that chemistry is a very deep part of our lives for the very great benefit of human beings. You go to hospital, you need drugs, you need antiseptics, you need materials which are made by chemists. You go to the hospital in your car, which is driven by fuels made by chemists. You maybe get up in the morning, have a shower, have a wash. You use products made by chemists. You're wearing clothes which are with fibers made by chemists. Without chemistry, the world would be a much, much, much poorer place. And really, we should talk about the benefits of chemistry for humankind, the good that it can do. The next discoveries in drugs, say anti-cancer drugs, will come from chemistry. The way to clean up the atmosphere, which is a problem that exists all over the world, will come from chemistry. The way to solve our energy problems will come from chemistry. The rockets going to the moon in the very short period of time rely on physics and chemistry. Chemistry is everywhere.
That's an interesting point. Actually, I was looking at some of the historical records and I found a very interesting comment. In 1853, 1853, way back, in the Royal Society of Chemistry, the president was announcing, if at all we are going to solve the problem of hunger, the solution is going to come from chemists. The chemists have to find a way of increasing productivity.
Yes.
That's how, for example, the artificial ammonia came in. The whole Haber process was a result of it. But if you look back, you find DDT in breast milk. You find chemicals which are dangerous in your drinking water. Okay? In a sense, the way chemistry has been utilized in the last few decades, perhaps we need to learn something more, right? What do you say about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And chemistry can be used for bad as well. But it's a matter of balance, surely. Yes, you can pick areas of bad bits of where chemistry is being used badly, but there's so much more where chemistry is being used positively, particularly in our understanding of the chemistry of the world, the chemistry of the oceans, the chemistry of the atmosphere, the chemistry of the soil. And back to your comment about the President of the Royal Society saying chemistry will solve our food problem. It will. As a growing world population, the world population is growing at an enormous rate. We have to feed them. How do we feed them? Well, we find ways of utilizing fertilizers much more effectively, so that means making better fertilizers, that's chemistry, or better still, taking the food that we grow, so that can be any type of food, and making sure through chemistry that we can get the maximum type of energy out of it. And here's an example. At the moment, we use farmers' fields, to grow fuel crops, not food crops. So chemists have to find a way of generating fuel more effectively, so the land that's used for fuel crops can then be turned back into food crops. So the President of the Royal Society was right.
That's a very interesting point. Coming to this question of gender, another issue in which you are very interested. Yes. One person kind of commented in one meeting, fine if women want to do science, there is nothing wrong. But why do you want to harp about it? How does it matter whether it was done by Mr. Newton or Miss Newton? Yes. The 3 laws of Newton are laws of the nature. Yes. So what does it matter that whether it is discovered by men or women? Yes. I think we are bringing in wrong issues into science. That's what that person's comment was. Yeah.
You can understand their point of view, can't you? Because science has a rich history of men and some women, not a lot of women, contributing to the wonderful discoveries from which we now benefit. But you know something, the problems that we face as humankind, they're significant. Energy, food, climate, you name it. And this will require all of our talent, all of our skills to understand them, to break them down. And what does that mean? It means that men and women contribute equally to the endeavour of science. And if you look in every single country, in every single subject, at all over time, you find that women have been disadvantaged in reaching the top of their profession, the professors, the chief executives of companies. And why is that? Well, it's because we expect different things of men and women. But there's a problem, isn't there? Because we're losing all of that female talent that we train up in schools, that we train up in our colleges, we train up in our universities, and yet they don't reach the top. They're not, as much as men, they're not contributing in the way that we would need them to do to solve these problems in society. So yes, it's important to me because it's important to science, because it's important to all of us.
That's a very interesting point. We need to elaborate and discuss on this, but we'll take a very short break. Keep watching this very interesting and very enlightening conversation. We'll take a very short break. Come back. Welcome back to Eureka, and we are having a very interesting and a very enlightening conversation with Professor Paul Walton, who is a professor of chemistry at University of York in United Kingdom. We were talking about gender in science before the break. Let me continue that question. Let me play devil's advocate. Let's say you need certain number of people who should be working in science. Okay, maybe 100, maybe 200, maybe 500. Okay, how does it matter what their gender is?
Yes, yeah.
Do you think women as a category, when they come and do science, they bring in something essential to the way we do science?
Yeah, it's a good question, and the answer the answer to your question comes from studies that have been done on where the best science comes from. And this was done by the journal Nature, a science journal, that looked back at where its most impactful, its most important science had come from over the years. And this is science which has affected all of our lives. And when it looked at who had contributed to those key breakthrough discoveries, it found that they'd been made in teams of people working together, men and women, different ethnicities, different ages, different backgrounds. And there's the secret. There's the secret, because science, the breakthroughs are made, yes, sometimes by individuals, but mostly by diverse teams of people bringing their different experiences, their different backgrounds to the same problem. And that includes men and women. So to answer your question.
That's a very interesting point. Science may be about the nature, which is objective, but science is being done by human being.
That's right.
So as human being, I suppose when we are inclusive, I think we are more creative.
That's right.
That's I think a very important point. In India, I think we need to also keep in view that the inclusive of regions, of people of different backgrounds is very essential to science. In fact, historians were also talking about that the whole industrial revolution was also possible because different class of people in Europe were also able to do science at particular point of time. Till then, opportunities were very limited. That's I think a very important. Let me come to this question. I mean, if you look at contemporary world, science does not bring a lot of money. You go to business, you go to finance, you go to maybe entertainment industry, you get a lot of money. What motivated you to take up science as a career?
Yeah. Well, the sheer beauty of it, first of all, and when I was a young boy, I was lucky to have a chemistry set and did all the things with a chemistry set that you'd expect a young child to do: change colors, create reactions and new substances. But you know, as I've got a little bit older, I've realized that there's something else, and that is science can make a difference. Science can really change for the better other people's lives for a long time. And if you're lucky enough to make some discoveries, and I have been lucky enough to make some discoveries, I know those discoveries are going to make a difference to a very large number of people for a very long time. And only science really has the possibility of doing that. And yes, maybe it's paid a little bit less, maybe you can't have quite the big house or the big car, but really what do you want to live life for? Well, I tell you something, for me, it's the ability to make a difference, to say, yes, what I did it to the best of my ability, and what's come out of that is really making people's lives better. And science gives you that, it really does.
That's, I think, a very important point. I think most scientists would say that they are in science because of the satisfaction that it gives to you rather than, you know, the material benefits. Of course, one does look for a certain amount of material benefits and comfort, but the driving force, the motivation is the enjoyment that you get out of discovering something new that nobody else ever knew before.
That's right.
That's I think.
And meeting new people and traveling to different countries and talking about projects. And of course, science offers all these things, which are a great joy, they're a privilege.
We have entered into 21st century. Roughly 2 decades of 21st century is going to get over, maybe, another 2 years, right? At this juncture, if you want to say 5 major challenges which chemistry can contribute, what would you put them as?
Yeah, climate change, one. So improving air quality. This is critical, and there's the chemistry of the atmosphere that's key there. 2, energy. How do we create enough energy to sustain the world population? All the estimates are that the world population will double its energy needs in the next 20 years. That includes India, by the way.
Yeah, of
this
course.
is something we need to solve. Chemistry will address that in a very significant way. 3, disease, and that's in 2 parts actually. The disease of the management of the diseases we already know, infection. For instance, new antibiotics. We need new antibiotics to tackle the infections that are resistant to antibiotics. That will come from chemistry. And things like cancer, we still need to solve cancer. What are going to be the drugs? What are going to be the interventions? They will come from chemistry. In fact, there's a lovely story about the most successful anti-cancer drug, cisplatin, which is based on the element platinum, was discovered by chance. Discovered by chance in an American laboratory, chemist laboratory, right? And that will probably save, well, that will save lives and maybe your and my life in the future. So you would say that those may be 3 and 4. And then fourthly, food, and we've already talked about this, is giving the world the necessary food supply. And chemistry will help valorize, and that's a word which means get the most out of food.
That's a very interesting point, and with this, we need to end this conversation for lack of time. We could talk a lot more. Keep watching Eureka. We'll come back with a very interesting conversation next week. Thank you for being with us. I mean, it's a wonderful show. We had a very nice and interesting discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.